Justin Bieber and 50 Cent and Dr. Dre. Everyone's selling their music catalog. So this is why it's that much more important to talk about, because this could be you very soon. In the last 12 months, I've sold roughly $9 million in music catalog, and I've gone through this process and it is, for me, very fun, but there's so much involved. And so if you are watching this video, you are probably someone who is interested or about to sell your music catalog. So I want to walk you through the process of what to kind of expect, but also how to prepare. If you find this video helpful, please be sure to give it a like, share it with someone in the music biz so that we can all learn and grow together. So the first thing that we're always going to do, and this is for anybody, I don't care if you're a no name or you are Justin Bieber, who, by the way, sold his catalog. Justin Bieber and 50 Cent and Dr. Dre, everyone's selling their music catalog. So this is why it's that much more important to talk about, because this could be you very soon. But the first thing we do is a valuation. So we have to determine how much is the catalog worth. And so you ask, how do we do that? So we're going to look at statistics for and analytics for your specific catalog. So that's going to be things like statistics of, your streaming, your downloads, royalty income reports. And we're going to do this typically over the span of the last 12 months, because this is how we are, again, coming to that valuation of how much is your catalog worth. So in other words, how many streams are you getting per month on Spotify? Right? How many downloads are you getting on iTunes? So we take that number and then we do a multiple of a certain amount. Now, this is the part where having someone on your side that's a little bit more of an expert helps. But typically, the multiple will be on the low side, maybe 12. Now, if you have a more valuable catalog, we get higher. So we might be, let's say you're making $100,000 a month, then we're going to multiply that amount by, let's say, 15, 17, 18. Now, I will tell you that we've covered this so much and talked about it, but like if you're a Bob Dylan, selling your catalog, you might get a multiple of 20, 21. I mean, I've heard of 22s, but really you're going to be probably closer to like a 15 or lower. So anyway, this is how we come to this number. And so everyone can agree on it. It's not based on our feelings. It's literally based on how much money has the catalog been earning. So then what we do after that is we go, okay, so we have a buyer. The buyer is interested. Typically, we're going to put together what's called a letter of intent. Now, the letter of intent is really a glorified placeholder agreement. It's a short form version of the big long agreement that we're ultimately going to do, which is called a purchase agreement. And the letter of intent is going to have a couple really important things in it, right? So it's going to say top music attorney is looking to purchase, Johnny J's music catalog hereafter specified in Exhibit A. So there's going to be a little schedule attached to the letter of intent. And then there's stuff in it like top music attorney wants exclusivity. I don't want anybody else offering to purchase this catalog while we're having this discussion, because there's a bunch of steps that have to take place. So while I'm taking time, I'm using my team, I'm hiring my attorneys, and we're doing all the things to figure out if we're actually moving forward with this, I want to be exclusive. So that's something you often see in letters of intent. It also usually defines the timeline. So we go, if we haven't made a deal and signed a purchase agreement in 6 months, the letter of intent will automatically expire. That's pretty common as well. But then we get into things like, well, what if the deal, goes sideways and we have a dispute? Where are we going to duke it out? And so in the letter of intent, it will specify what choice of law applies, what's the jurisdiction. So for you, what that means is you want to get the choice of law and the jurisdiction where you are located. This is really important because if there is some kind of issue, you don't want to have to go hire an attorney that's in a different state. You don't want to have to travel for court appearances. We talk about attorney's fees. What if we need to enforce? Can we get our attorney's fees? So even though it is a short form version of a full purchase agreement, there's still the main terms. We call them material terms. The main material terms are what you see in these letters of intent. So all good. We're feeling good. We got the main, terms in place. We have a general valuation. We go, top music attorney is going to purchase your catalog for 1.5 million. Based on the valuation. So then we sign this thing. Now, the letter of intent typically will say this is only binding if certain conditions happen, and then we'll specify what those things are. So even though it is an enforceable agreement, what we do is we say in the agreement, it's not going to be enforceable if it turns out that I don't actually own it, right? Or you, I would say, if I'm purchasing it. So if you don't actually own your catalog, if there's problems, I'm pulling out. I don't have any obligation to follow through on this deal. The deal is enforceable when we actually sign the full-length purchase agreement. We have now a valuation. We have a letter of intent. And so now what happens after we sign this letter of intent is roughly over the next 3 to 4 months, we're going to go through chain of title. Chain of title is where we basically go through all the documents for the sale, where you prove your ownership, and just to show that you can actually transfer ownership to the buyer. So in this case, Top Music Attorney. But anyway, so let me show you the actual document that we send, which gives an overview of the chain of title. My law firm will send this music catalog sales checklist, and here are all the great things. Let me make this bigger so you can see. So we need a list of all the titles if you are selling albums, if you are selling EPs or singles. So that's easy, but with all of this, we usually don't need what's called metadata. So we don't need all the things like your ISRC number or your UPC or any of the other metadata, right? How long is this song? Or to give us the actual files. Usually at the first step with this letter of intent, but I do need generally, we're going to have the list, okay? So, if we're selling 3 albums and 29 singles, we'll list them out. Next, most of the time, we're doing these deals in the United States, but almost all the time, US copyright applications at a minimum are required. So for the sale, obviously the buyer wants an actual registration. So to show that you have registered your music and you own it. Every once in a while, the seller might not have all of the music registered, so we will file as part of the process. That's typically okay as long as we actually get the applications filed. By the time we sign the purchase agreement, we're okay. So don't sweat it too much. But this is what I always say. You have to copyright your stuff anyway. Please do it. And, leading up to this, sale. But in any case, you have the copyright applications and then also the distributor statements. So going back to, we have to provide statements showing earnings. We do that by providing supporting documentation from the distributor, right? The company that is distributing the music for you. We'll do that over the past 12 months. We need producer agreements saying you own the music. We need artist agreements. Have you worked with other artists? Have you had featured artists? We're also going to submit work for hire agreements showing that you in fact own 100% of the music. And so this is where wrinkles come up. Okay, so you're, let's say, an artist or a record label or music manager, whatever your role is. We're often moving so quickly that in the creation of the music, we forget to have someone sign something. We forget to have the featured artist sign an agreement. We forget to have the producer sign over a work for hire saying that you own everything. And so what we will have to do as part of the sale is to retroactively go back and get that person to sign, which may or may not be a problem, right? So if it's a close friend, he might be fine, cool, we'll get the agreement signed. But sometimes we can't find these people, and that can ruin your deal because the buyer wants to have full chain of title to say, I'm not going to have any issues. Because guess what happens? If we sell the catalog and then after the fact, we didn't get something from one of the producers and the producer comes back and has a claim against the new buyer, that buyer's going to sue you because you didn't do your due diligence. So that's why we care about this stuff. All right. So also we're going to need, copies of all licenses. We need to know, what TV shows, what movies have the right to feature the music. We need distribution agreements showing what the terms are. We need featured artist agreements. We talked about that. And then we're also going to need the actual files. And it's not just the final versions of the music, but we need to supply things like instrumentals if you have them. Do you have remixes? Do you have splits? Right? So do you have the actual instrumental sections in different parts, like a drum section? Do you have the vocal section? So these are all things that we want to get together. Again, there's usually some administrative steps that need to happen here because we're usually not 100% together on this. Also, we need to get cover art. It's funny how many times cover art is just nowhere to be found. You make the cover art and you upload it and then you forget where it is. So you do need cover art if you are selling the music. And then here's the other piece. Oftentimes, we're selling the music videos that accompany the album and or the singles and or the EPs. This can present quite the wrinkle if you are someone who didn't keep track of your video files for the music videos, because now you're selling these things. In our example, we were doing a $1.5 million sale, and you're so excited, and we have almost everything, and then you can't find the video files. So at least with my office, we have a creative way to help you with that because we've run into this problem before. So you want to have not only, a creative lawyer to help you with this catalog sale, but also if you run into issues with your actual materials. So that's an actual overview with like the checklist of what I and my office send to actual clients. So now hopefully we have all that stuff together. And through the course of the 3 to 4 months that I was describing after we signed the letter of intent, we're putting all that stuff together. As we get it, we're delivering it to the other side. The other side are doing their due diligence checks. They're checking the copyright office. They're reviewing all of our stuff. They have to actually review all the agreements that we submit. Just because I'm like, hey, we got the producer agreement, here you go, it doesn't mean that it's legally sufficient. So it, not only legal chain of title, but now we get to do the negotiating of the purchase agreement. So we have the full length agreement, and these things can be beasts. I think on the last deal I did, the final the final document was something like 200 pages. Now that's with exhibits and extra stuff, but just the point being that there is a lot that goes into negotiating all the terms. So here's some stuff that can come up down the line that we don't really think about. So again, you are the seller, you're going to make $1.5 million on this deal. So if I am purchasing your videos and your music, well, as it relates to the music, I might want to advertise, and I might want to be able to do that on your actual artist profiles. And so I will negotiate and say that I have the ability to have access to your accounts as an advertiser. You may or may not be okay with that. But for me, I want to be able to market the music to your fans, because your fans are the ones that love you and are listening to your stuff. So that's something that we typically have to negotiate. We might also negotiate access to your YouTube channel. So same thing, for example, if your videos are on your channel and they're performing really well, I don't want you to take those videos down because they have the hundreds of thousands of plays or whatever's on them. They look real good. So I will want to keep the videos up on your channel, and I'll say, in the contract, you can't do anything to delete the videos. You can't do anything to cause the deletion of the videos by accident. That's just an example of how we end up getting a little bit more in the weeds once we are negotiating the actual purchase agreement. Beyond that, having someone who's familiar with this process is really important because people get off track. Okay, there's so many moving parts, and you need someone who has the ability to keep the other side on track, but also just to keep track of what's going on. Because, you're paying money through this process for the team that's helping you. And so you want to get it done as soon as possible. And beyond that, it's planning for the future. So we get the deal done. You get the transference. It's usually not the full, let's say 1.5 million. You're not going to get that in your bank account as soon as you sign. Typically, there's going to be an amount that is held back. And that's because what if something happens? It's like a contingency amount. So we go, we're going to send you 900,000 upon signing. And there might be a certain amount that's held back. Let's say it's 600,000. And that's because over the course of the 90 days following signing, we need to make sure that all the last due diligence items are delivered. We need your files. We need the last contracts that might be outstanding. So you don't get that money until certain contingencies happen. It's amazing. It's exciting when you sell a music catalog, for sure, but there's so many steps that go into it that by the time you actually get the money in your bank account, you're like, oh my gosh, thank goodness this is over. So again, having someone to help you is really paramount. That's definitely what we do over at Delgado Entertainment Law. So if you are in the process of selling your catalog, if you want to sell your music catalog, you can reach out to us at delgadoentertainment.com, and we look forward to helping you make your millions.